Yes, my G's, how are you guys doing? Hope you guys are all doing great. Today we've got a really nice Serum 2 bass with a lot of funk, a bit of aggression, a great character, and yeah, just a really nice overall groove. Let's have a little listen to the sound and then I'll break down the patch. So it's all just held down with one note. All of the movement is coming from inside Serum. This one's called the Boat Sabre. It's available on my Patreon now as an exclusive preset to all paid members over there. And yeah, let's quickly turn off the effects, and then we can talk about how I started making the sound and what wave tables I used and everything like that. So we've got basically one LFO here. LFO1 is doing the main kind of rhythm, the main movement, 1/4, a sort of ramp down with a little bit of an attack. And then we're using LFO2 on a slower rate at 1 bar to modulate the phase of LFO1 down here. You can see the phase. So I've put the LFO2 onto the phase and then swung it all the way around. And yeah, in case you can't see it there, you can see basically how I've done it here. LFO2. Modulating the LFO1 phase, and the amount is set to 100%. So yeah, when the LFO2 gets up to this second point here, as it goes up here, it's going to start changing the position of LFO1. So you can see how the line kind of stops here at the beginning for a little bit and then returns again. So that's the groove set up, right? And as you hear, what we have to start off with is just a saw wave, right? At -1, with some unison on. So 3 voices on the unison. Soft clipping as well. So on the distortion mode here, put the soft clipping on, turn that all the way up. So it's kind of just changed the shape of the saw wave a bit. Okay, let's put our filter back on. As you notice, I had a filter running here, and this is a low pass filter, and it goes basically all the way from 0 up to 100. So all the way from left to right. And that's the main movement. It's a low pass filter, filtering everything. In line with this LFO, which is already being modulated by LFO2. A little bit of drive on that filter, but yeah, that's it really. The saw wave with the distortion, unison with the filter on the low pass. Okay, that's how we get started. Then we add in a sub bass underneath, -2 sine wave, and here the level is the level is up to about 64%, and then it modulates on the LFO to get even louder in line with the rhythm that the LFO is creating. So the sub is always on, but it gets pushed even more along with the rhythm. Alright, that's all running into the filter as well. Then we've got another wavetable here, and this one is I believe it's the triangle. Yeah, number 3. That is, yeah, it's the triangle wave, but it doesn't look like a triangle because I've got some diode 2 on here. So another distortion warp mode. Unison up at 5. And the diode is being modulated, so the diode actually starts. Yeah, the knob is actually turned up to 57%, but the LFO1 brings the start position back to around 30, something like that. So you can see where it sort of starts. So yeah, basically the distortion is being modulated by the LFO. That's the main point here. And we've got a bit of FM as well. So about 40% coming in from coming in from the saw wave, going into the triangle wave. So yeah, nice little blending of the oscillators, kind of to get them to fit together a bit better. And yeah, the octave on this triangle that's been heavily modified is an octave higher than the saw wave, so covering a different range of the spectrum. And the fine tuning is slightly off as well, slightly down on this one and slightly up on oscillator A. Alright, next we've got to add in some noise. So I'm loving the Geiger counter noise. It's great. The count is all the way up. The stereo is all the way up, and then we just modulate the level. So the level starts at 0 and it goes up to 71% on the LFO. And now we've got this nice noise hit that's following everything. Alright, we're almost done in this section, but I also wanted to add a bit of a nice filter movement. Not only the low pass, but also a notch filter. So I run the low pass into filter 2, so set the output of filter 1 to go into filter 2. Then on filter 2, everything's coming into here now, and I've got a lovely notch filter starting at around 80 Hertz and going up to around 250 Hertz, again in line with my main LFO, everything on the LFO 1 here. And that really pumps up the sound a lot because I'm driving up the filter quite high. And I'm just shaping the sound a bit, so you kind of, as the filter's being driven up, you kind of hear a bit more of that low subby bass power, and you hear a bit more of the high end as well. But yeah, makes it much more expressive, a little bit more plucky as well. But yeah, that's it, that's that done. So we'll just jump over to the effects now. And the first thing I did was my favourite technique in Serum, which is the low-high splitter and distorting the high end. And here I really changed the tone of the sound quite a lot because I used the rectify mode. And as you hear, what the rectify mode is doing is it actually takes a bit of tonality out of the sound. It makes it like slightly more atonal. So in a way it becomes like a little bit darker and a bit more textural and aggressive. But I really like how it does that. So the rectify is great for sort of taking out some of the tone some of the pitch from the sound, making it a bit more digital sounding, you know. But anyway, it's up around 610, the split, so it's sort of everything above 600 is being rectified, and the low end like remains the same, so the low end's still quite nice and pure and powerful. It's just that sort of gritty distortion fuzz texture is just on the high part of the sound, you know. Alright, then a bit of hyperdimension and flanger, and here's where I use a little bit more of I do it on the rectify as well, actually. I use a bit more of the secondary LFO. So this LFO was being used just to modulate the groove, basically, just the position of LFO 1. But also, as that modulation happens and the groove shifts, I also wanted to change the sound design for that moment. So what I do here is I put a bit of extra dimension on this LFO 2. So that dimension comes up here. And I put a bit of extra flanging on, so the sound flanges out a little bit more. And I also took the drive of the rectify down, so you lose a bit of that distortion grit. So when you have this part here, it's basically happening on the part where you have the sort of long note. So it's like dum 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 dum. In that sort of long moment, that's where the modulation is occurring. And in that like longer held down note, which is caused by the LFO movement, of course, but in that longer note, the rectify comes off a bit. The dimension goes up and the flanger goes up, so everything changes a bit for the long one. So that keeps the sound nice and dynamic and gives it contrast, and it has a sort of cool and response built into the patch through the sound design, you know. But yeah, that's anyway the flanger and the dimension. Then I've got another filter on, and this one's a sort of, it's like a notch filter, but it's just the peak, so it's more just a little bell rather than a complete notch taking out all the frequencies in that section, you know. It's just a little EQ kind of dip essentially. But there's a little bit of movement on that again on my LFO 1, on the main LFO, sort of from 150 up to 450, and yeah, tiny bit of drive because it was already getting pretty loud at this point. I couldn't really drive it too much more without it distorting. But again, it kind of focuses in the sound a bit more, sharpens it in a sense to give a bit more priority to the darker edge of the sound. Like it takes away a little bit of the cheesy aspect of the kind of saw waves and triangle waves. It like kind of refines them a bit. Yeah, just like a little bit of that mid-range movement. helps to shape it and make it seem a bit more darker and have a nicer tonality to it, you know. Then a tiny bit of reverb. This is the convolution reverb, the laptop room. It's quite cool, this one. It's really big. It's a really big, long, deep one, but it's only on about 9%. And then a touch of equalizer at the end, just actually boosting a little bit around 450. Yeah, it added just a little bit of punch. Yeah, last minute bit of mixing and mastering EQ kind of tweak that I did at the end of the sound. I found a little spot and I thought, oh yeah, bit of push there, kind of ties everything together and it kind of completes it. So there you go, there you have it. That's the Boat Sabre. Yeah, just playing that at one note and it already sounds great, doesn't it? You could loop that for a while and not get bored of it. But yeah, I really like that sound. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned a bit today as well. May I remind you as well, if you want any preset packs for Serum or Vital or Phase Plant, I've got loads of those on my website. Links for those are all down below. There's even a preset pack for Current if you use that. I also have a great community over on Patreon. We're most active on Discord, but if you want to join Patreon and not get in the Discord for a lower price, you can do that and you'll get loads of cool exclusive presets and samples, and you'll support the channel as well, and you'll get this sound in there for sure. Also, if you want any production lessons, I teach music production Monday through Saturday. You can book in via my online calendar down below. And also, if you need any mixing and mastering for your next release, you can get a great sound if you use me instead of using AI tools or something like that. Then email me about that. All right, that's it from me today. More from me soon. Much love.